Yeah.
So, welcome, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Albert. How are
Joe,
you?
thank you so much. Thank you so much, man, for joining. It's all about the agents. So, I am Joe. We've been talking about this for a while now, and we've been going back and forth. And I'm finally glad that you had some time to get on and really talk about C3 risk insurance and the things that you're doing there. Listen, I'm a San Diego guy still. I've seen the evolution of C3, and you guys have built a phenomenal agency. You guys are still growing. I still see you guys adding people on LinkedIn. But today, I really want to talk to you a little bit about your specialty now at C3 and what you've been doing. And we've been from not your average Joe, your past YouTube segment that you used to do, but now I'm calling you Cyber Joe, man. You are really kind of the cyber guy at C3. So first of all, Joe, thank you so much for joining me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and thanks for your partnership with CNA. You guys have been with us since the beginning and we appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. No, C3 has been it's one of those agencies I used to tell people, like, if that was the type of agency back when I was a broker, there would have been no way that was the house for me. So first of all, Joe, talk to us a little bit about your journey at C3, because you guys have been now around for about going on
Yeah,
7 years or so,
yeah,
right?
7.5 years will be 8 years in April. So yeah, I mean, we started as a small agency and just, you know, been I got to give it to the guys have been great at explaining their vision to new producers, and we've been growing
Yeah.
by basically bringing on new producers and new staff, and um, we've done one or two mergers and acquisitions. But besides that, it's all been just
Yeah.
individual brokers, which I think is what we've had the best luck with.
Yeah, yeah, and it really is. I mean, you guys have brought in specialists, right, in their respective industries, and really guys and gals that are really entities, right, and what they do, from Doug and all the other folks that you've brought in. But yeah, I really enjoy keeping track of Gabe and Jamie and their podcasts, and all the things they continue to do. But I'm excited to talk to you, Joe, because I've known you for a long time. We've been in the broker community in San Diego for years and years, and I've loved to see just some of the stuff that you've been doing, as far as like the content that you're building, and really kind of your focus around cyber liability. So talk to me about, like, kind of what led you to this path of special. We always talk about, it's important to specialize as a broker, and I think you found a niche within what you're doing. So talk to me a little bit about what led you to this journey.
Yeah, I would say that there was not one thing that led me here, but I was a generalist for a long time, probably like 12
Mm-hmm.
years. And then I joined the trucking team. And during that time, I was also selling cyber. And at one of the trucking conventions, Jamie brought me over because he knew I'd been talking about cyber on LinkedIn and selling a
Yeah.
lot of that. And he said that one of his clients had a breach. He was going through a ransomware right now, and he needed some help. So I asked him what was going on, and he said, they got hacked. The guy was asking for 250K, and he had actually negotiated the guy down himself. It was a Cura ransomware group, and he got it down to 115K. But then it came to paying the guy, right? So he took the
Right.
115K and he put it in a Coinbase account. And when he tried to send it to the guy, Coinbase locked his account because they have know your customers laws, and you can't just send over 100 grand, with
Right.
by putting the money in there and then sending it. So his account got locked. He couldn't even get to that 115K. He had to like message people that he knew
Yeah.
people at Coinbase to like try to unlock his money. And then I was able to connect him with someone that's experienced in incident response, and they connected
Okay.
him to a company called Digital Mint, which is a company that all they do is pay hackers in Bitcoin. They have
Oh, wow.
the account set up. They can do the negotiation too, but that already been done. And they make sure that the hacker's not on the OFAC list, which is like the terrorist watch list. Because if you
Okay.
pay somebody on the OFAC list, you could actually go to jail.
Oh, wow.
So you want to be careful about that kind of thing.
This is
And
wild.
we were able to like get the hacker paid, and he got his data back within like 24 hours of us getting involved. But it just
But he was out $115,000.
yeah, he
Like
he
that.
finally got them to unlock that, and he was able to pay, and he was like, yeah, this is a win, but he still lost 115,000, like you say.
Sure.
But at least
Sure.
the incident was over, and he can go back to his regular life. And it just kind of put a light bulb in my head, like this is what the insurance companies are doing for people. They're doing all these
Yeah.
steps for them. They're getting, when you make that call to the claims hotline, it's not like other insurance where it's like, okay, I had a fire or I had a liability incident. Let's
Right.
take care of it, and then we'll call the insurance company in a couple of days. With cyber insurance, it's proactive. You get them
Okay.
involved before you can even get them involved before a claim actually happens. If you suspect that somebody's in your system, they have coverages called claims avoidance. So
Okay.
when uh when you call that 800 number, you really get a whole team on your side. So you get breach counsel, you get the incident response tech people, you get the forensics guys to make sure like the person's not still in your system, you get the accounting forensics people, like a property claim to figure out your business
Hmm.
income losses,
Hmm.
and you get the companies that even pay the ransom, and the breach counsel or the incident response company will help you negotiate with the ransom bad actor too, because they have experience with these hacking groups because they're doing it all
Right.
day long. So that just kind of showed me like this is something that everybody needs. You need not only the insurance, but you need the insurance team that they bring you in order to like get the worst day of your professional career over with so that you can get back to business.
And for the trucking company, like was he a large company? Was it a mid-sized business? Like,
Yeah, I would say
like
mid-size. He had like 60 trucks.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
what
So still
wasn't
like
huge,
like
but like a
it's
regional,
good sizable
uh,
business. Yeah.
yeah, a large regional trucker. Yeah, here in Southern
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Just that, and that's one of the things too that's important for, for those listening, that this is, as well as a small company, large company and mid, this affects all businesses, right? Any size, anywhere, this could happen to pretty much anybody, correct?
absolutely. And well, the premiums aren't large for small companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's still essential for them. I think it's the number one policy they should be buying before any other policy, really, because it's the big companies that can take a hit like that. They can pay that,
Correct. Right.
500,000 or a million in ransom, and write it off on their balance sheet. With a small
Right.
company, that's they're
I could
they're
put them out
maybe
of
going month
business.
to month, and they don't have like
Right.
cash reserves to be able to pay off a ransom actor like that. So they get in a situation where they have to figure out how to either rebuild or, um, it'll set them back like a couple years even
Yeah.
if they do survive.
Well, and Joe, let's talk about that, because I remember, you remember too, right? Like 15 years ago, when people were started talking about cyber liability, it was just one of those coverages that, you know, people would like, oh, I don't need it, I'm too small, right? Like it just became one of those coverages that it was just like it was a side note, right? Where I think nowadays, listen, companies of all sizes have been impacted, right? We have multinational companies that have been impacted, right? So what what have you seen a change in mindset from the business owner that are more receptive to buying cyber liability today?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, going back in the history of cyber insurance, everybody claims to have sold the first cyber insurance policy somewhere around 1999.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
but depending on what company you're talking to, they'll tell you that they
uh,
sold one, or whatever agent, they'll be like, "Oh, I was selling this in 2001." But you know, in 2000, I think 14 was the big Target and Home Depot breach. And back
yeah.
then it was all about like personal identifiable information, credit cards, all that.
Correct.
And back then, like you could sell a credit card record with a name and address for like $50, right?
Yeah.
So that was very valuable. But as more and more hacks happen, it's like supply and demand for the hackers too.
Sure.
You couldn't sell those. You could sell them for maybe like a buck or like $5 each. And the hackers were like, whoa, like we're not making any money on this. What if we just
Right.
encrypted their data and ransomed them instead? So
Right.
they kind of changed their tactics on that and they started ransoming people instead. And it's grown a lot since then. And in 2001, 2002, um, during COVID and everyone started working at home, we had another surge where the amount of ransomware even doubled, and
Correct. Right.
the prices for cyber insurance doubled too.
Yeah.
Um, and since then, things have calmed down, prices have calmed down, and I would say like while ransomware is still like one of the biggest threat, um,
Hmm.
underwriting has gotten better and enforcing people having more access, more like controls, right? So
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
people are reloading from backups because they actually have backups now,
Okay.
and less of these ransoms are being paid because um, they they've been backing up their systems more regularly, and putting
The
those.
clients are being they're being more proactive. They kind of understand what to do. And Joe, are there things that when you're talking to a client, you know, um, as far as like do you put them through like an assessment, like a cyber liability assessment of like, okay, this is how much coverage you need? Like, how do you determine what the coverage is and what the needs of the client are?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a 7-step proven process that I've created,
Hmm.
that takes people through um, the process of buying insurance. And
Yeah.
one of the steps in that is answering the question, how much insurance do I need? Um,
Yeah.
so we can answer that in two different ways. One is benchmarking by seeing what other companies are using, like
Okay.
companies in your size and your industry. What are they buying? And the other one is forward-looking benchmarking, where we do um, over 50,000 loss simulations in order
Okay.
to see what your losses could be based on your size and your industry. And that way, we can answer that question. Like, if you want to transfer 95% of your risk, we're going to need you to be at, 3 million. Um,
Okay.
and then we can look at what they currently have. Say you have 1 million. Well, for a company your size, that's only transferring 80% of your risk, meaning 20% of the time, you're
Right.
going to have a claim that goes over that $1 million.
Right. Right. Kind of playing around with it, not leaving them vulnerable, right, for that potential claim.
Yeah, and it gets a little bit more nitty gritty in that as well, because we can look at it like this is what your losses could be with the ransomware. This is what it
Sure.
could be like with a system failure, like a CrowdStrike failure.
Hmm.
And this was what it would be like with a data breach. So we aggregate all those, but usually I like to look at the worst case scenario and then plan for that.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. I mean, it's just so important because obviously I'm on the carrier side, so we see it obviously from that end of it. But just I think being more proactive as you are as an agent, educating people on cyber liability. Like, for those of you that don't follow Joe on social media or LinkedIn, please do, because you always have, like, tips of the trade. You're always sharing content, just valuable information. And I think, listen, people are paying attention nowadays to cyber liability, where like we said back in the day, it just wasn't a thing. But the fact that you have this 7-step process, I think helps the clients also understand kind of where they're vulnerable, right? Because they might not have a good understanding of, like, oh, do I actually have an exposure? And the answer is probably every single client has an exposure, just a matter of how much exposure they have and how much they want to transfer on to the carrier. Um, as far as the trends or things that you're seeing, in today's marketplace, you talked a little bit about pricing kind of stabilizing a little bit from the companies. But what are you looking at as far as are you seeing new issues, new claim scenarios coming to the forefront in today's market?
Yeah, I would say that AI has kind of thrown a wrench in things and changed
Yeah.
a lot of what we're seeing. I mean, the bar is so low now to um, create ransomware, create malware, because you can create it with, ChatGPT. Um,
Yeah.
you can write phishing emails without even knowing English. So,
Right.
it's lowered the bar so much. Um, One statistic I like is 1,265% increase in phishing emails since ChatGPT launched. So we are seeing
Wow.
this, like,
Wow.
so many emails, and these guys are smart. They know there's email filters, and they are constantly, um, touching the fence to see where they can get in. They're like velociraptors in Jurassic Park.
Right.
They're
Right.
they're smart. They can figure out where the weakness is and exploit it, and that's what their job is.
And so how quickly can we respond, as an industry to that? Because it's moving at such a fast pace. Like, do you have controls in place that can kind of help respond to that, or how do you address that? Because, like you said, it's to increase that amount, like, you have to be prepared for it, right?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One is on the technical side, to
Mm-hmm.
reduce email spoofing with DMARC controls with companies like Mimecast and email filter
Okay.
companies like that. Microsoft has a version of that too. Although with
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft tools, you have to remember that they're the most widely used, so hackers are looking for exploits in those the most. So using a smaller
Sure.
company can actually be an advantage, um, rather than going with the big
Right.
guys. Um,
Yeah.
the other part of it
Makes
is
sense.
employee education, employee awareness programs when it comes to cyber. So you can
Yeah.
use platforms like Know Before. There's a number of them out there. We use Know Before. They're kind of like the bigger um, employee awareness program, and they help both educate the clients with educational content, and also they have like integrations with Microsoft where you can basically um, click a button and report phishing right away. And then once somebody reports that phishing email, um, it's blocked for the entire company. So that's nice too. The other thing you can do is send out phishing simulation emails. I'm sure if you guys have gotten those at CNA because you're,
Yeah.
a large company. Most large companies are doing this now. And then you can coach people afterwards to um, tell them why they shouldn't click on those links.
Why they click on those things? Yeah.
Oh,
No, wait, listen, I just went through some training the other day. So we're constantly getting, updates, on things.
right.
And you know what? It was interesting because there was an AI component to some of the conversations that we've had, because of that increase, especially in the phishing emails. But I think you're right. The educational piece, has to start within the company. Obviously, as you being the insurance advisor, you're educating your client, but the clients also have a responsibility, right, to do what they need to do internally, right, and put the appropriate controls in place. Um, do
Yeah,
you
it's
find
actually
that
seen as a control. Yeah. Yeah.
was that? Go
What I'm
ahead.
saying is that it's actually like a question on a lot of insurance applications now is if you have an
Yeah,
employee awareness program or not and who you're using.
correct.
So
Yeah,
companies are asking about it because it's important.
yeah. And do you get a lot of support from the carriers, obviously within the cyber piece? Because you talked about kind of calling the claims hotline prior to the claim happening, in terms of, it's not like putting on an incident, but it's like, hey, I'm trying to be proactive. Do you get a lot, because you guys work with a lot of different carriers, do you guys get a lot of support from the carriers within these
Absolutely.
these these
Yeah.
coverages? Yeah.
Yeah, carriers are getting more and more technical, especially
Mhm.
the cyber insurance startups that are out there. They're integrating security tools. They have some of them have their own incident response teams. Some of them have their own endpoint detection systems that you can add. The cybersecurity and cyber insurance is getting more melded together, whether that's
Yeah.
good or bad, on both sides, kind of like work comp and payroll, for better or worse.
Right. Right.
So there's some um, melding of those two things already. And as far as support, yeah, I mean, companies like Chubb and CNA are having they have like partnerships with companies like KnowBe4 where you get discounts. Some of
Sure.
them, like I think Cowbell will give you like a free um, year subscription to Wiser, which is an employee awareness program. So there's a lot
That's
of
awesome.
great programs out there to get you off on the right foot, and then it's up to you to keep paying for those subscriptions afterwards.
Right, right. No, I think that's a great tool, and I think the one thing, like we always say, right, like on the insurance side, it takes us a long time to kind of get things going. So sometimes the technology moves at such a faster pace that it takes us a while to kind of get to where the coverages need to be. But you've probably seen that cyber policies are probably evolving, right? Like you say, they're interacting with technology a little bit better, utilizing vendors. Are there areas that the forms need to improve or need to change to adapt to the rapid claim environment, or are you noticing that at all?
Yeah, I think as far as a microcosm in insurance, cyber insurance carriers and the cyber insurance divisions of larger carriers are moving faster than everybody else just because
Yeah,
the way the
yeah,
industry is changing. Um,
it's a good thing.
yeah, and I think that with new things like AI having like new AI affirmative endorsements can set people at ease, knowing that that's covered. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, at the same time, not changing the form can actually can keep your coverage more broad because um, it may already be considered a technology service, the AI, or it could
Mhm.
already be included in that. And, adding wording for AI may not help you. It may actually
Kind of limit some of the coverage
limit the
potentially.
coverage rather than, keeping silent and keeping it broad. So yeah, I think
That's a good point.
we have to be careful on some of those things because yes, maybe a company would love to see AI, being named in the policy, but at the same time, you may not need that. So I think the way the policies are changing right now are probably um, limiting coverages due to
Okay, just
large
everything being so
large
broad. Yeah,
lawsuits. I would say like
yeah,
contingent business income is probably one coverage that people are getting less of, whether they know it or not.
sure,
Um,
sure.
because there's like contingent income, business income from your tech providers, and then there's like
Hmm.
non-IT business income. So we're
Right,
having like two different limits here.
sure.
And then, there's the definition of like your partners, right? So
Hmm.
A lot of them are requiring you to have like a written contract with that carrier or that partner.
Right. With that partner.
So
Yeah.
like say something like Change Healthcare, which was a huge issue for as far as people down the line, like doctors' offices and clinics not being able to fill prescriptions. Well, they don't
Right.
have a written contract with Change Healthcare or with maybe they don't even have it with like Blue Shield or
Hmm.
one of those companies. So they're, in the wind as far as like getting business income coverage, even though they can't give any prescriptions.
Operate. Yeah. Yeah. They can operate. Interesting. Like in any coverage, right? Like, it gets to a point where it's capacity. And do the carriers have capacity to offer those coverages that initially were just kind of throw-ins, right? And now obviously claim activity and everything like that has impacted it. So things need to pivot. So I
Yeah,
guess
and
it's
if you
no
look at
different than you see it, in every coverage.
yeah, and if you look at it from the industry as a whole, it's actually not bad for the industry um,
Hmm. Hmm.
because we don't want like one of these large CrowdStrike type issues to bring down an entire company.
Correct.
So um, this protects the company. It lets them underwrite in a way, just like how, we took flood insurance out of homeowners insurance. We have to
Correct.
have a way to be able to deliver a product for a price that's reasonable,
Right.
where the insurance company can underwrite, what they're actually going to cover. So by taking out
And make it
those,
available to everybody.
yeah,
Right.
and
And make
making it
it make
available
it
to
available to
everybody.
everybody. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, take
Yeah.
social
That's
engineering,
a
for
good point.
example. Social engineering is usually capped at 250,000
Yeah.
because it's such a huge problem. Um,
Hmm.
we were talking about the increase in phishing emails. Um,
Yeah.
Once people compromise your emails, email compromise, they could sit in your system and wait for you to send an invoice or wait for somebody to send you an invoice and then ask them to change the numbers of the account. And
Right.
now you're sending it to the bad actor instead of, the person you meant to send it. And then you get that call like, we haven't got your
Hey,
payment yet. And
we
you're
haven't got
like,
your payment.
what
What
are
are you
you
talking
talking about?
about?
I paid you already. And
Right.
then they look at the account numbers and they're like, shoot,
What happened?
or
Yeah,
some
that's
other
it's
expletive.
that's
And then
so
the
wild.
company is like, I'm not going to pay you again.
Right.
The other
It's like,
company's
wait a
like, well,
minute.
we gave you the building materials, we need our
Yeah.
money.
Right.
So if both parties don't have cyber insurance or if one person doesn't have the right, coverage for that social engineering incident, then you kind of get in a back and forth with your customer, and it's not good for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Now, Joe, how do you find yourself now with C3? Now that you've taken this cyber role, are you kind of managing cyber liability for the agency as a whole, like in the different segments? Are you kind of like you're kind of brought in now as a cyber specialist? How are you guys managing that? Because I could see you coming in and going to all the accounts now and just being like, hey, I got somebody for cyber, don't worry, Joe's on his way, you know.
Yeah, it's cool being the guy. I am brought in on claims, and I think it does help with our customers knowing like the cyber guys on the job.
Yeah.
Um, and it also helps, looking over renewals and stuff because a lot of these are in the past have been farmed out to
Yeah, absolutely.
wholesalers, and it's good they have like a policy, but we want to make sure that they're properly covered.
Yeah, it's the right policy. Well, and what I love to see, Joe, is that I always talk about people's journeys in insurance, and again, we've known each other for a long time, and like you said, you were a generalist for many years. Just kind of ran a small business, running operations, but I feel like you've really found your calling. Like I see you loving this side of the business, which is awesome, man. I think it's great. It suits you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's fun. I would give anybody the advice is to find something that you're like really interested in and go for it. Don't worry about like the size of the premiums and
Right,
the
right.
um all that stuff. Just go for it because if you're into it, all the other things will come. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and you'll just
yeah.
attract the right customers to you because that's what you're into.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because so many times, listen, at the end of the day, you're a producer, right? So you got to produce business, right? You got to write premium, you got to bring revenue to the firm, right? But you've gone kind of beyond that in becoming kind of like the entity, right, of a firm that has so many different industries that you're involved in, and here you have an in-house specialist that can provide the necessary coverages. And I think it's very unique because I've been around, and I can't tell you that I've gone to an agency and they said, oh, that's the cyber producer, or that's
Mhm.
like the specialist, right? It's like everybody kind of da- dabs in it, like everybody's in it, and they get their feet wet a little bit in the technology segment or whatever. But there's really not a lot of agencies that can say, hey, I have a specialist that can come in and do an assessment on your program, on where you guys are with your cyber liability. So I think that what you found a niche, and like you say, there's going to be small premiums, but hey, there's going to be some large premiums in there as well. So that's, I'm sure that's helped you build your book as the new Cyber Joe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the big ones, like the publicly traded
Yeah.
companies. Those are cool because they're usually with like a Marsh or locked in.
Sure.
And it's great to come in and show them like what we're all about and show them like why we're the best person to work with. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. And I would say like you're right. A lot of companies don't have a cyber guy unless they're like a
Hmm.
publicly traded uh, type agency like Marsh or Locked In
Sure.
or
Right.
Woodruff
Right.
Lawyer. So by bringing that to the brokers here, we're adding value to all our clients by having a
Yeah.
cyber person.
Yeah. No, and that was one thing when I in my young broker career, the what I think always helped me be successful is that I was always able to lean on somebody, whether there was a specialist in automotive or restaurants or whatever. And there was always these specialty brokers that I can kind of lean on, learn from. And it made me become a better broker, right? But having that, and I think also it's just the culture of your agency is also one that allows that to happen, right? It's like, oh
Mhm.
no, I'm not. I'm gonna keep this piece. I don't want another producer to come in, right? Like you're like, no, no, no. Let's bring in our benefits. Let's bring in our entire team, right? And
Right.
when you do that as a unit, right? Like the client kind of feels like, man, like they're really taking care of me, right? They got me from every angle of my business, and that's something that I could say that C3 has really done a great job in presenting itself out to the market, bringing in the specialties and seeing you in this journey, man. I'm like, man, Joe has found his calling. But listen, I've been really, really eager to have you and just learn a little bit about what you're doing. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining. And it's all about the agents. I definitely need to have you back so we can kind of dive into a little bit more into some claim scenarios. Love for you to share a little bit more stories of what you're seeing out there. But I think this is a good opportunity for clients. We're still in a hard market. Like you're in California, I'm in Texas. Kind of tough places to write business these days. So again, if you're an agent out there and you're struggling to find different coverages, different ideas, different things to offer your clients, make sure that you're having these conversations around cyber liability, right? It's an opportunity not to just sell another coverage to a client just for premium and revenue. It's to educate a client to potentially avoid $150,000 loss, right? A ransomware payment. So I think it's a great opportunity for the agents that are out there especially some of those young agents that are getting into the business, and identifying, different coverages that they can really, become specialists in. And this is a great one. I think cyber liability it's not going anywhere, right? It's
Nope.
here to stay. Unfortunately, it's only going to get, harder and harder as technology evolves, and risks evolve. And like you say, AI is changing the game. So we're going to
And I
continue
would,
to see things.
yeah, sorry to cut you off. I would also suggest to agents out there to not be afraid to talk about what they're doing, both
Yeah.
online and in person. Don't shy away from like public speaking, because that's where you're really shown as an expert. And
Yeah.
the more you do, the easier it gets. And also, if you're specializing in an industry, you can do a lot of education on that. You could start a podcast. Like we started a podcast called Ransomware Rewind, and
Oh,
we
nice.
have a lot of fun with that. It's totally separate from
I'll
C3,
have to
but
subscribe to it. I didn't know you guys had a podcast. I love it. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So
So
yeah,
it's
me and
ransomware rewind. We can find it on Spotify and all the all
absolutely,
the
yep,
all the
yeah, it's on
good places.
all of them, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Yeah, we're out there. So
Let's go.
it's a lot of
Let's
fun,
go.
creating, because you get into insurance and you may think it's like all about just writing policies, but you still have that creative itch and you want to express yourself out there. So look for ways to
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
whether it's through media and other ways you can help your clients in the industry that you're in.
Awesome. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate it. And this is one of the things why I love what I do, right? Like I get a chance to, learn from my agents, learn from, some of our partners. And I just enjoy having a conversation with a good friend and just learning about the journey. But that's awesome, man. Ransomware Rewind. Make sure you guys follow that podcast and listen to Joe talk a little bit more. I'll make sure to follow and learn more from you, Joe. But listen, again, thank you so much for your time, brother. It's always good to have you. I will definitely have you back and chat a little bit more about cyber liability. But Joe, it's always a pleasure, man. You stay well and hope you and your family are good. Look forward to talking to you again, buddy.
Okay, thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah.